Oh, shit, I forgot to look up what episode it is. Oh, I hit my microphone. Anyways, here we are. What is up, everybody? And welcome to another episode. I never fail to have a terrible opening to this stupid show. And I'm looking at my phone because I don't know what episode it is. It's episode 52. Episode 52 of the Hot Stove Podcast. We're back, baby. This is only our first actual episode since the Stovey Awards. It's been like a month.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. A much-needed break. On my part, at least. I'm excited about football again, which is cool. We'll be talking about that over the next couple weeks or so. But today we got a different topic for you. A couple things first before we get started. Here on the YouTube side, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment, and hit the notification bell as well so you know when we post new stuff. Follow us on Twitter at HotStovePod. It's at HotStovePod. On Twitter, also radio show, WQAQ, Tuesdays at 9 a.m. That starts next week. So this episode is coming out on January 25th. Following Tuesday, February 1st, we'll be back on the radio waves. So check that out as well. Josh and I will be doing the normal radio thing as well. What else? Oh, I guess we could just do it in this episode since we were just talking about it. But before we're in the new year, this is the first proper episode of the new year. So I think it's high time. Did you say Bofa? Is that what you just said?
I said proper.
Okay, proper. Do a proper video. It's high time.
Are you Hugh Nickel?
As we enter into, we're now 3.5 years into Hot Stove.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Only
we do a little bit of a state of the channel address, if you will. And basically what that looks like is this past football season ended with a rapid deterioration of at least my own personal mental health. Because doing the same topics for 17, 18 weeks straight is boring. So now here's the thing. We're probably still going to do the same thing next football season, but because it's easy to do. But when it comes to the channel this year, in 2022, I want to make a concerted effort to do some more fun stuff. I'd like to do more After Dark episodes. I feel like we don't really record enough of those. And the ones we do record now are all just movie list episodes. And those are fun. Those are fun to do. And we'll continue to do more of those, but I want to just do like other stuff. Maybe we'll do a watch along stream at some point. I know Mark and I told him earlier, you could probably book it March 27th. Mark and I will be streaming our live reactions to the Oscar Awards, and be putting heavy amounts of money down on it.
Buddy, I already do Oscar predictions like that. I already do that.
Yeah.
The fact that I can now legally bet on that, oh man.
Yeah. Excellent. So we'll be doing that. I want to do some more like fun videos like that. Like I said, maybe we'll like watch something on stream, see if we can work a way where we do like a movie commentary or something like that. I don't know. Who the hell knows, right? Anywho, what that means for even the main show is that once we get past the Super Bowl, so we have the next 3 weeks after this episode kind of planned out already. Once we get past the Super Bowl, we're still going to be doing the normal episodes every week or so. We're going to put out stuff weekly. Whether every week it's a new episode and we sprinkle in some other content, or, it's a new regular episode every couple weeks, and in between we do other stuff. Who the hell knows? I don't really. We don't plan. I personally don't plan that far ahead. So, we'll see when that time comes. But we've been talking about some cool topic videos that we want to do. Cool is certainly a word for the stuff we've been talking about. It should be very fun. A little sneak peek is that we were just workshopping something for an episode on old-timey baseball. So that would be fun. Another episode about like ranking athletes that we'd want to help us in a bar fight. That could be an entire episode in and of itself. So what I want to do, at least in the new year, is like try some new stuff, because doing the same thing over and over again can get pretty stale. and especially for these guys who give me and themselves and take time out of their own day every week to do a silly little YouTube show. Yeah, we might as well have some like actual fun with it.
I'm not sure what else I would be doing.
Exactly. I need to make sports content at all times.
This is Mark and I have talked about this. If I am a person who, if I'm not making sports content, I'm suicidal.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not actually for legal reasons. That's a joke. Don't call the police on me. I'm fine. I'm not actually gonna hurt myself. Maybe not. Who knows? But I like doing this kind of stuff. So, anyways, also I didn't say it. I'm your host Zach. That's Mark, Josh, and Austin is here as well. Only in voice. Maybe one of our goals this year should be to get Austin a webcam.
Face reveal?
Yeah.
All right, well, wait. He was on the draft episode. We met Austin.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I will say, normally, sorry, I just feel like I should let the people know that normally the shirt's only off on an After Dark episode. But the heat's on pretty high right now, and Daddy's hot. So, yeah,
I feel that. I was telling Mark how in my apartment, there's no in-between sauna and icebox. Either it's I turn the heat off and it's really cold, or I turn it up to 62 like it is right now, and I'm sweating. I got to take my socks off real quick. Because as you may know, as a human, heat radiates through your feet. So your feet and your head, the two endpoints of your body, are like the biggest heat receptors. So you take your socks off, you'll be a little cooler. Anyways, so today we're going to be doing our Major League Baseball Hall of Fame ballots. We do it every year. This is probably the third or fourth time that we've done it. We're going to skip over some of like the normal bitching that we do on the Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens side of things, because we've kind of gone over that a trillion times, and there are other interesting things to talk about on the ballot. I assume the four of us all have both of them on our ballot.
Yep.
Ooh, Bonds and Clemens?
Yep. Bonds and Clemens, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, do you know where we stand on that? It's stupid that they're not in. Moving on. Anyways, so we'll be doing that this week. But before we do that, got a couple things. So first of all, I tallied up the points for our FanDuel contest for the NFL season this year. Olympic style scoring. So a fourth place finish is 1 point. Third place is 2 points. Second place is 3 points. First place is 4 points. Easy enough, right? So a couple outliers here in terms of total finishes in a certain spot. The most first place finishes was myself with 6. The most second place finishes was also myself with 6.
I'm trying to say.
The
How
most
many weeks do we do it?
all 18 weeks that we did it.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
The most third place finishes was Josh with 7. And the most fourth place finishes was Austin with 7. Another note, I was the only one to have a place. I didn't finish in last a single time this season, is what I'm trying to say. So,
so we know who finished first.
Yeah, let's go.
Maybe.
Let's go like seconds, the most important.
Yeah.
right.
So
Yeah.
fourth.
So it ended up being pretty close while I was tallying it, honestly, until I got to like the first place finishes, and then things kind of just went haywire a little bit. But so in last place with 38 total points is Josh. Josh did. He finished.
How the fuck is it possible?
Josh finished third and fourth a combined 13 times out of the 18. So that's how that's possible, Josh. That's how.
Well, I'll tell you. How many weeks did you guys only pick from 2 games? Huh? How many?
How many weeks did you forget to set a lineup?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what most likely kept Austin down, and Austin finished in third with 42 points, is that there were probably 3 or 4 weeks during the season where Austin just didn't set a lineup and got an automatic last place. Yeah, and he still beat. Yeah.
No further questions.
So, for comparison, Austin finished obviously he led with the most fourth place finishes, but in third place finishes, Josh had 7, Austin had 2. And then in second place finishes, Josh had 2, Austin had 5. And Austin also had 1 more first place finish than Josh. So had Austin set his lineup more than 75% of the time, he probably would have won the whole thing. Mark finished in second with 46 points, and then myself finished in first with 54 points. So
closer than expected.
Yes, yeah, closer than expected. So we'll still do FanDuel stuff. Especially we usually do golf. All the like big golf events, we'll be sure to keep doing that kind of stuff. But those are the standings for the 2021 NFL season. Congratulations to myself. Thank you. Also, for the new year, trivia has made its righteous return to the Hot Stove Podcast. I've got 2 trivia questions for you today, both baseball related, neither of them Hall of Fame related, like Mark asked earlier. One of them is a current player's question. The other one is a fantastic stat. So I'll let you guys pick. Which one do you want first?
Current player?
Yeah, let's do the current player first. Warm up a bit.
So, 19 players hit 35. Now, I'm not asking you for all 19.
Oh, I was like, wow, we're starting off.
19 players hit 35 home runs or more in 2021. I want you to name me the player who did it in the least amount of games played.
Joey Votto.
Mark, you are correct.
That was the guy I was thinking of when you said will most likely be a Hall of Famer and the advanced metrics back it up, but the rest of it doesn't.
Joey Votto hit 36 home runs in 129 games in 2021.
Okay. Good start, just like last year.
All right. Well, this next one, trust me, Mark will not get it as easily as he did that one. So we're moving on to fantastic stats. So this is a stat that has only been achieved once in baseball history. I'm pulling up this guy's baseball reference page first so I can have that open. I want you to tell me the one player in baseball history who has had both. So who's done both of these things? A season with 50 home runs and 20 steals, and a season with 20 home runs and 50 steals.
Eric Davis.
Incorrect.
Oh, man, I thought that was it.
So there's only one player who's registered both a 50-20 and 20-50 season in their career.
Alfonso Soriano.
No, it's not Alfonso Soriano.
Come on, man. Why'd you chuckle like that? Damn well could have been.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been.
You would have hit 50 in a year. That would have been crazy.
You want to know something that makes this even more ridiculous? So,
What's that?
Those 2 seasons, and I'll give you the years, 1992 and 1996, were 2 of this player's 3 All-Star years in 15 seasons in Major League Baseball. What makes it even more ridiculous is that he hit 50 home runs one of those years. His career high beyond that 50 home run season, 24.
Well, that's because this particular outfielder for the Baltimore Orioles, Brady Anderson, was quite the steroid user.
Mark, you're correct. Brady Anderson.
As soon as you said the years, I was like, oh, it's Brady Anderson. Okay.
Brady Anderson
hit
21 home runs with 53 steals in 1992, and in 1996 hit 50 home runs with 21 steals. Did pretty much the exact opposite. And mind you, like I said, on both sides of the coin, 53 steals in 1992 were his career high. His second highest was 36 in 1999. And his 50 home runs in 1996 were more than double the next best home run season in his career. One of the weirdest outliers in baseball history. Had no other season with more than 24 home runs, and then in 1996 hit 50 of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll be honest. When you lose a point like that to Mark, that's the one that you just don't even care about. I don't even know who the fuck Blake Anderson is, right?
Brady.
So I can't feel
Yeah,
bad.
you don't even know him so much. You got his name wrong.
Yeah, who cares? Guy's a juicer. I can't respect him. But the Votto ones, those can sting. But one like this, brush it off. Move on from Blake and.
Yeah, I thought it would be a little harder.
Turns out so much.
Turns out Mark knows even more than I thought. One of these days, I'm going to give him a baseball question that he doesn't know. One of these days.
Well, you've given me ones that I don't know, but one of these days I'm just waiting for the one that I can't even venture a guess.
Yeah.
Like, usually my guesses are halfway decent. Like, even if I get it wrong. What I'm waiting for is the one where I'm just completely fucking stumped.
I'll keep trying. I'm going to keep trying. So, we'll move on to the main content of the day here. 2022 Baseball Hall of Fame announcements will be made tomorrow or tonight, technically, when this episode comes out. So we're going to talk about the people who we have are on our own personal ballots. If you want to see Mark talk about it with someone who's far more articulate than the rest of us, you can watch his episode of What's in the Box Score, where him and Bleacher Report writer Rick Wiener did this exact topic probably a month ago. So
yeah, it was about a month ago. It was when the ballots first came out.
Yeah, so you can do that if you want to hear actual conversation. We'll provide something far less sophisticated if I had to take a wild guess. So parameters are as usual. You have up to 10 players on your ballot, and that's it. Those are the only parameters from the list of however many we've been given. So is this list of 30 on Baseball Reference all 30 that were on the ballot?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure that I didn't put somebody on there who wasn't on the ballot, but was also on the radar here. So like we said, the four of us each have Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens. We've gone over this a trillion times. If you want to hear our opinions on that, watch last year's Hall of Fame episode, where I'm sure we talked for a half an hour about how it's silly that they aren't in, and it's going to be even more silly when they don't get in tomorrow. But we will move on from that. Is there any player in particular that any of you want to bring up right off the bat that you have on your ballot that you think that you want to talk about?
I have a guy that I know no one else will vote for.
Right,
I have Bobby Abreu.
Oh my God.
Yes, it's Bobby Abreu.
Okay, first, before we start, does anybody else have Bobby Abreu on their ballot?
No.
Is this a Hall of Fame ballot?
This is a ballot for my local Arby's. Put them on a wall.
Okay. Listen, I get it. I totally get it. You think it's like Bobby Abreu, the guy made fucking 2 All-Star teams. I mean, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a guy who played 18 years, finished his career with a 395 on base, hit 570 doubles, walked more than he struck out, and had 2,500 hits. This is
18 years and only made 2 All-Star games?
Yeah.
I love all those stats, and he just goes, 2 All-Star games?
He was criminally underrated throughout his entire career. He also stole 400 bases. He was a legitimate power speed threat.
Well, candidly, I was going to say that like my only
what?
knowledge of Bobby Abreu comes from him being on the Yankees team that I played with in MLB 2K8.
Yeah.
And since when I played that game, I would hit 70 home runs a season with him. I kind of assumed that he was like this huge power guy.
No, he only hit 288 home runs. He wasn't a massive slugger. And he didn't walk more than he struck out. He walked almost as much as he struck out. He walked 400 times. He struck out, or 1,400 times. He struck out 1,800 times.
I'll say you only walked 400 times in 18 years. That's
no. But he had a couple. He had 1 year where he walked more, but it was always pretty close. He was good for 100 walks a year and around 100 strikeouts.
When was his rookie year? When did he start playing?
1996 was when he came up, but his first full season was 1998.
96, isn't that when Jeter came up? That was his first year, right?
Yeah.
Because I just think when they played together on the OA Yankees, and he looked about 30 years older than Derek.
Yeah.
Bobby Abreu fucking aged like leather. I mean, that guy looks terrible.
You want to talk about a guy who looks terrible? Sammy Sosa, right?
No, that's true.
Different race now. That guy was so good at baseball that he changed his race.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm not doing the thing. All right, I'll stop. I'll stop with the Sammy Sosa bet. All right.
I was gonna say, do you got Sammy Sosa?
I do not have Sammy Sosa on my ballot, which is I was talking to Mark about like a bit of a hypocritical thing. We'll discuss this in a moment. How even myself have maybe had some oversight in making this list, and I guess if you wanted to throw Sammy Sosa on there for reasons that I will explain, I guess go for it. I didn't make it on my ballot, especially because honestly, looking at a lot of his numbers, kind of, I mean, they're really good, but
yeah, outside of the home runs and RBIs, it's nothing special.
He doesn't have like the incredibly eye-popping numbers that you would think from someone with the allure of the name Sammy Sosa, you know. I do find it interesting though that on Baseball Reference's Hall of Fame meter, which is just a metric of how likely they are to make the Hall of Fame, he is 202, even though in his 10th year on the ballot, his highest percentage was 17% last year. That doesn't seem like a guy who's double as likely as the average person to make the Hall of Fame.
Likely when their career ends. If I remember correctly, it's like by when they retired, how likely were they?
I see.
It doesn't take voting into consideration.
Okay.
But yeah, I fucking Rick laughed in my face when I said Bobby Abreu on our episode. You guys laughed in my face in this one. The guy was just so incredibly underrated that people forget that he was people forget he was good, let alone a very, very good baseball player who did everything and did it for a very long time. And yeah, for a corner outfielder, do you like to see 288 home runs for a Hall of Famer? Not usually, but I don't like the whole this position needs to hit for more power than this one does argument. It's like, when a first baseman has 290 home runs, and it's like, yeah, but you're supposed to hit for more power as a first baseman. Yeah, the guy hit 315 and they had 2,800 hits. Like, what's the big deal here? So I don't like that. I don't like that argument. I just think he's mainly on my ballot as this guy should definitely be looked at more than he's getting looked at. I didn't feel like I was taking a vote away from anybody by putting Bobby Abreu on mine. So, and I've got the full 10. I always try to get the full 10.
I should have 8 because I completely left someone out that I absolutely should have put in there. My bad.
But yeah, so that's my thing for Bobby Abreu, is just criminally underrated and not enough people talk about him.
Yeah, my ballot is now up to 8. How many people, Josh and Austin, how many people do you have on your ballot?
I have 7.
I believe I'm at 9.
Mine, like I said, mine probably should be 9. You know what? I'm changing it. It'll be 9.
Mine's 8.
Because I just thought over something, and for reasons I'm going to talk about with one player, I kind of have to include another player with that who wasn't on that list in the first place. So I'm putting both of them on there. So it's 9 now. What makes this Hall of Fame class so interesting is that the majority of it, every single player who is likely to be looked at as the best candidates, every single player has a stupid argument keeping them off of the Hall of Fame. Keeping them out of the Hall of Fame. Every single one of them. So it's really a question of which way do you want to go. Do you want to talk about Scott Rowland? Do you want to talk about Billy Wagner? How about Todd Helton? How people think he shouldn't be a Hall of Famer just because he played in Colorado? How about the endless Kurt Schilling debate because he's an asshole? Asshole is an understatement. He's an abhorrent human being. But that's beside the point. And then you have the steroid guys and the alleged steroid guys that people hold to a different standard than the guys who happen to have been suspended, as if it's somehow a different world. It's all of that stuff is like, it makes it at the same, on one hand, like mildly exciting, but on the other hand, endlessly frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Because playing the bongos.
What?
Do you hear that?
It might just be me hitting my my.
Oh my god! I mean, I thought I was in a tropical paradise.
No. No, I think it might just be me. I got to be careful with this new mic. It picks up a lot more things that I do. So I got to stop doing all this kind of thing. But let's actually we'll go into the area of the player I just added. So the big piece of contention when it comes to these Hall of Fame ballots is the argument between me and the boomers as to how many people who did steroids you should let in. And my answer is all of them, because I don't think it matters at all. I'm going to assume, take a wild guess here, that the three of you are on the opposite side of that fence. Meaning, mostly when it comes to the case of Alex Rodriguez. Am I the only person who has A-Rod on my ballot?
No.
I do.
Austin also does, and Josh also does.
I'm the only one that doesn't.
Okay.
You know, Mark, true boomer. I'm not.
Mark is a boomer in the purest form. I expected him to not have A-Rod. And I would like to say that the player I added to my ballot for the hypocrite reason was Manny Ramirez as well.
I figured.
Because I cannot sit here with a straight face, make the argument for A-Rod to be in the Hall of Fame and not do the same for Manny Ramirez, because their circumstances are very similar to one another. Mm-hmm. Both are two of arguably the best right-handed power hitters in baseball history. A-Rod is fourth all-time in home runs. Manny Ramirez he's top 10, right?
No, not quite. He's, I believe, 14th.
I'm trying to look for his name. He's got 555.
Yeah,
an incredible number. Both mired by extended and on in Manny Ramirez's case, multiple extended suspensions for PED usage. And I think that's where like the gray area kind of extends more. Like if you take the stance of like letting certain cheaters in over others, which hate to break it to you, a lot of people have that stance of like, this kind of cheating is like Mark, this kind of cheating is okay. This kind of cheating is not okay. If you want to do that and say that Manny Ramirez, because of the fact that he clearly didn't give a fuck and just continued to use and continued to get caught, if you want to say that keeps him off of your ballot, I guess that's cool. So it comes down to something that Mark and I were talking about before I think Austin showed up, was that I think I've come down to the position, the reason I generally don't care about steroid usage when it comes to my opinions on a player, is a couple of reasons. One, because I don't think on a larger level, I don't think that steroid usage should be as taboo as it is in sports. I think it's largely blown up for the sake of, a guise of control over the players that doesn't need to be there. But what the hell was I trying to say? Oh, so when it comes to someone like A-Rod, and it comes to the Hall of Fame, I was telling Mark beforehand, at its base, the Hall of Fame for any sport is nothing if not a museum. It's a vessel meant to tell the history of something, right? That's what a museum is. So I don't think it's necessarily the job of a museum to keep certain people out because they're bad people or cheated the system. That kind of defeats the point of having a museum. We've talked about it a bunch of times over, that the Baseball Hall of Fame actively shunning away the decade that saved the sport is a very bad idea, because not only is it disingenuous to the history of the sport, but it also erases the fact that, again, I can't stress this enough, that steroid era is what made people care about baseball at a time where people didn't care about baseball. And the league seemingly randomly, seemingly overnight, just decided to start enforcing a rule that they hadn't for the last century of the sport, and just automatically decided that every player who, even if they were, every player who had been using before was exonerated, and every player who had continued to do the thing that players had been doing for decades afterwards was immediately shunned from the likes of the baseball of the sports history books. I think it's a gross injustice to players generally. Not to mention that there's been at least ample evidence in other sports, and I wish I had the journals on it like on hand. I should really get those. It's mostly in combat sports about there's actual data to support the ineffective nature of anti-doping in combat sports. And I can't possibly assume that it doesn't also extend to other professional sports. And it's not just a baseball thing. But I do think my separation with baseball culture, as I've talked about it, comes from the fact that, like, again, if this were the NFL, and for example, let's just say, who's an apt comparison for A-Rod in the NFL? Obviously not the best to ever do it, but he's fucking close, right? So say Drew Brees, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say Drew Brees served a season-long suspension because he was doping his ass up, right? I don't. Yeah. I don't think that we would be having the same bellyache when Drew Brees is up to the ballot. I don't think it's as important to other sports as it seems to be for baseball. The way that it seems to be for the baseball tastemakers, as I'll call them, the guys who like to control their little boys club with the plaques that you can see behind Mark's head, is that if you break a rule, if you break one, especially a lot of the times, if you break a rule that isn't even a rule, those unwritten rules, the things that we make up to just like jerk ourselves off, then you're automatically shunned from the sport for the rest of your life. Pete Rose is a perfect example of it, right? He did a thing that was against the rules, and instead of in normal circumstances, you would punish someone, they would serve their time and be done with it. Baseball has decided that Pete Rose is excommunicado only in the case, only with the exception of when they can use his likeness.
Yeah.
To honor Pete Rose and have his stuff in the Hall of Fame. But we won't honor you with a plaque as the man with the most hits in Major League Baseball history.
I do have a thing about that. So Pete Rose being shunned from the game of baseball and his exclusion from the Hall of Fame are two different things. It is the Hall of Fame's decision to not allow Pete Rose in, basically.
Sure.
Because the Hall of Fame is not run by Major League Baseball. It's independently run. So
it's dumber.
Him being just completely excommunicated from the game of baseball, that's like original rule book, like every player knows they can't do what Pete Rose did or they are facing a lifetime suspension. That's always been the punishment. That's always been the rule. So that's where it's like, where I'm like, I don't mind that. Like, yeah, he got this lifetime ban. And it's like, that's the way it's been for 150 years. He knew damn well what he was doing. And if he got caught, he would get banned from baseball for life. He did it. He got caught. That's the punishment.
And on the subject of the Hall of Fame, it just annoys me more to know that, like you mentioned before we started recording, that his stuff is in the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, the hypocrisy of like one of the greatest moments thing, and the one part where you can go and just cycle through like greatest hit like moments is his hit record breaking it, and I'm like, why is he even here? I'd be like, no, you don't show my shit. Go fuck yourself. You'll get to use me to make money and not accept me and your great thing.
Trust me, he uses the hall to make plenty of money. He's there every induction.
Oh, for sure.
Like, charging $65 for an autograph and makes thousands every induction weekend. So,
anyways, to spin it forward, that's where I lie when it comes to players who used steroids and got suspended, and I think this is where I liken it, for example, to what I think most people would consider to be an even more egregious breaking of rules. In the case of Michael Vick, right? And not that Michael Vick is going to be a Hall of Famer. He isn't. That's beside the point, right? My point being is that Michael Vick committed a far more heinous act than anybody who's ever used a performance-enhancing substance, served actual prison time for it, and still afterwards came back and played at the NFL and still has a job in NFL media. So there's something, and this is hardly even really a talk about the way baseball runs things. It's more so a conversation on the concept of punishment. But the way that this sport in particular treats punishment as a punitive measure rather than a rehabilitative measure is the disconnect that I have, right? So if you want to say this is the what I think is the cognitive dissonance that comes with it. If you want to sit here and say that the anti-PED rules are here to discourage PED usage, that's cool, right? But what you would do to do that is put a system in place that actually Josh, are you not wearing pants?
What? No, I got pants on. Jesus Christ.
It looked like you weren't wearing pants.
I got pants on, man.
Josh, just don't set your phone that far away from me.
What do you mean?
It looks like you're not wearing pants.
Do I gotta prove it right now? I'm wearing pants.
You said earlier you were taking your pants off.
I'm not wearing pants.
I didn't hear him say that, but it definitely didn't look like he was definitely not wearing pants. Anyways, what I'm saying is that I don't think that breaking a rule, and especially breaking a rule and serving a suspension and continuing to be allowed to play afterwards, should then mean that you're just like disqualified for the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's basically what it is. Because it's the concept of like, you did the crime, you do the time. These players did the crime. You can quibble about whether or not it should be a crime all day. Beside the point, it is against the rules to use performance-enhancing substances. I get that. But if you did the crime, you do the time, and then the league continues to allow you to play afterwards, what the hell else are you supposed to do as a player? You know? Like, there's not much more that you can do. If you serve the suspension, you continue to play afterwards. I don't think you should continue to be punished after your career is over by not being allowed in the Hall of Fame. Especially when, in the case of someone like A-Rod, if you present A-Rod's numbers to someone who knows nothing about baseball, or not someone who knows nothing about baseball, because then they wouldn't understand what any of those numbers mean. Exactly. But if you present them to someone who has a base understanding of the sport, doesn't really know all the numbers or anything like that, present them without name, they're going to say that that's one of like the 5 best careers you'll ever fucking see in the sport. You know? I don't feel okay leaving that out of the Hall of Fame. I don't. I can't in my opinion, even as a private entity that has no formal business relationship with Major League Baseball, it's a disservice to the history of the sport, in my opinion, to leave a player out like that. To basically act like he didn't exist in the annals of baseball history.
I've been thinking about this more since we had a long conversation about this a few days ago. Because my policy has always been, if you fail the suspension, you're not getting, or you failed a test and served a suspension, you're not getting my vote. And then I started thinking about Nelson Cruz. And I was like, Yeah, I would vote for Nelson Cruz because he served a suspension and then had 7 years afterwards where he was fantastic and hasn't been suspended since. I think the thing with me with A-Rod and Manny, because as much as I love Manny and loved him growing up, I've never put him on my ballot, is it was multiple. It was multiple times. It was the fact that they cheated, they did the time, and then said, no, I'm going to do this again. That's where I'm like, no. Nelson Cruz served a 50-game suspension for PED use and then had the best years of his career afterward without a single suspension despite more testing. That, for me, is enough to be like, okay, I can vote for this guy because we know what he can do. Like, we've seen the raw, just nothing Nelson Cruz, and he is even better than he was when he was on steroids. So I'm fine voting for him. But the fact that A-Rod, and specifically Manny, because A-Rod only served one suspension, but it just happened to be 162 games for running a huge PED scandal throughout Major League Baseball. But specifically Manny Ramirez, the fact that he got suspended, then came back, and then got popped again, and then came back, and then got popped a third time.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, but the fact that he got popped 3 times, that's where I'm like, Manny, come the fuck on, man. Like, clearly you need these. Like, this is how you were.
Yeah, clearly
that
he
good.
doesn't have an addiction that baseball should acknowledge and help him heal through. No. What a dirty addict you are, Manny. Go fuck yourself.
You're not what he was saying.
That's not what I was saying.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard.
But
that's what I heard.
That's where I'm like, okay, this is, I can't justify, like, I just can't put it on my ballot. So
this is not me defending Alex Rodriguez the person. Asshole. Don't like him. He's bad at his current job at ESPN. All of that, right? Mm-hmm. This is not me defending him as a person. And speaking of not defending someone as a person, how many of you have Curt Schilling on your ballot?
I do not.
Out of respect to Curt, I didn't include him as per his wishes.
So,
I mean, that's the same reason I don't have him, but not out of any respect. I mean, if a guy disrespects the Hall of Fame by saying he doesn't want to be in it, then why the hell would I put him in it?
I understand that argument, and it's an argument that I have had for a long time. Mm-hmm. Again, we've done this show multiple times. I'm certain I have left Curt Schilling off of every ballot that I've ever done for this show. But actually, I was watching Outside the Lines. They've been doing a series every day where they make the Hall of Fame case for I think it's 6 players in total who are some of the most controversial figures on the Hall of Fame ballot. So they did one on Barry Bonds, they did one on Clemens, they did one on, I think they did one on Billy Wagner, and they did one last Friday on Curt Schilling, and it was personal friend, best man at my wedding, friend of the show, guy who loves me and would definitely pick me out of a lineup, Jeff Passan. He was talking about it, and I think what he said kind of recontextualized what I kind of thought about Curt Schilling, and it goes back to that whole like museum thing. Is like Curt Schilling in a lot of ways, as much as I again, disclaimer, awful human,
terrible,
the terrible guy. All right, the worst guy, Aubrey Huff levels of bad guy, right?
Some would say worse, but
so I would argue openly egging on a violent insurrection against the U.S. government is probably worse than just being awful on Twitter. Yeah, I would say
he played a game with blood on his leg. Okay, he can say what he wants. Okay,
good for him. But what Passan said that kind of made me think about it was like, generally speaking, when it comes to Clemens' views on the Hall of Fame, he's not really all that wrong. The reason he's out of the Hall of Fame is because most of the voters are generally pretty left-leaning. They don't necessarily agree with his politics. And certainly, I'll say it for the third time, I hate the guy, actually. But I don't think that, again, this goes back to what I was talking about with whatever the whole episode that we've been doing this. I don't think it's the job of the Hall of Fame to run a morality test before you put a guy in. And it's kind of a catch-22 because I understand not voting for him because he doesn't want to be voted in. But also, on the other hand, it makes me feel like he wins if he doesn't get into the Hall of Fame, and I don't want him to win at life. So
exactly.
So I'm almost putting him on my ballot right now out of spite, because if he gets in and has to go to Cooperstown and basically just like start sucking the dick of the baseball establishment that he's been openly slapping in the face for the last however many years, it would be kind of funny.
I love the spite.
And it helps that he has a Hall of Fame resume behind it. But like I said, it brings up a couple players to mind. One of them is on the ballot this year, and one of them is a guy we talked about before we started. Omar Viscoe and O.J. Simpson are two players that I think serve as a different bit of a comparison point here. I do think there are certain things off the field that should disqualify you from being in the Hall of Fame.
Did you say O.J. Simpson?
I think double homicide is probably a good disqualifier for a guy being in the Hall of Fame. Just
you want him to be a role model?
Thing to throw out there, right? Murdering two people should probably keep you out of the Hall. Omar Viscoe, the last 15 years of sexual and domestic violence and pulling his dick out in public and all that kind of shit.
I don't think that was Viscoe.
Oh, was it someone else?
That was Roberto Alomar, I think.
Right. Okay, I got the two wires crossed because we did the all-criminal team on the show, and they were both on the team. Anywho.
Yeah, they were the middle infield, just like the 90s Indians.
Right. Beside the point, I think that kind of stuff should probably disqualify you from being in the Hall of Fame. I don't think being a person, it's not just being someone whose politics I don't agree with, right? I know plenty of people whose politics I don't agree with. I have generally unagreeable politics myself. It's not just, oh, he's a Republican, I don't like him. It's he's an awful person, I don't like him. But just because I don't like him doesn't mean that he should be excluded from the history of baseball. And it's kind of like me. This is also almost like me taking like a blanket stance over all of this. It's like, again, I can't sit here and nominate all these steroid guys and then be like, well, this guy said bad things about people, so I can't put him in. Mm-hmm. It would be disingenuous. I can't make the argument of like, oh, they shouldn't shun people away from bad things and put steroid guys in, and then say they should shun people away from bad people and leave Roger Clemens out of the Hall of Fame. Not Roger Clemens, Curt Schilling. Roger Clemens also kind of a dick, but that's beside the point. Curt Schilling is the person I was talking about. So that's the reason that I made the decision to actually have him on my ballot this year.
Yeah, I have to vote for him. I don't like the whole, because people who don't like his politics don't admit it most of the time, and they try to come up with ridiculous cases for why he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, and none of them ever make any sense.
Which is funny because it's okay to say that you don't like the fact that he has the worst views on the world. It's perfectly okay to say that that's what you don't like.
Still talking about Curt?
Yeah. You don't have to make things up. It's perfectly okay to say that the guy is an awful shitbag.
Yeah.
It's cool. You know? No one's going to lambaste you for it. It's probably a popular opinion.
Yes. It's very popular opinion. But, and it's like, he only had 216 wins. Well, you're the guy who last week said wins don't matter, so why are you talking about that? It's always ridiculous shit like that.
It's true. Wins are a bad stat.
Yeah, and when you look at just the resume, you see the greatest postseason pitcher of all time. And I know Josh is, shitting on the bloody sock game. Take that out of it. take his time with Arizona and the rest of his starts with the Red Sox, you still get the best postseason pitcher of all time. He won World Series MVP with Randy Johnson, who won 4 straight Cy Young Awards in Arizona, while Curt Schilling was his number 2 starter.
Yeah, I was literally just looking this up. Curt Schilling finished second in the Cy Young voting in 3 of those 4 years that Randy Johnson won the Cy Young.
He was the second best pitcher on the planet, and the other one was starting ahead of him in the rotation.
Wait, he has a co-MVP?
Co-World Series MVP.
2001, right?
Yeah, 2001. It was split between Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling.
Wow. I will say, you were talking about the Bloody Sock game. Is it not just a little ludicrous that this is, I mean, what are we talking about? He wasn't severely injured. It was just a leg that happened to bleed. He was fine. I mean, I get the vision, the symbolism. It's very fun. It's cool.
No, look at his. There is tape of his, like, you can see video of his leg before and during the game with no sock on it. It is fucked up. It is just spewing blood and pus, and there's a huge, I don't remember what the exact injury was, but his ankle was destroyed.
I'm gonna be clear. Depending on how bad this looks, he's either in the hall or not.
I know people love to shit on the Bloody Sock game, and it's just like, oh, whatever. It's like, no, he could not push off of the mound. It was a miracle that he went out and pitched.
That sock is in the hall. That's disgusting.
Yes. Oh, yeah, sock's in the hall. I've seen it many a time.
Don't open that case.
All right. Well, yeah, I keep calling him Roger Clemens. That's the Curt Schilling bit. Enough with that. Let's get on to the fun kind of controversy here, where people are being left off for silly things. Before we get to that, though, does everybody have David Ortiz on their ballot?
Yeah.
I do,
yeah.
I do as well. Okay, I didn't know if, because I feel like David Ortiz is just like a safe, you put him on there, great guy, people love him. He got shot a couple years ago.
Yeah, actually, I have to take him off because he was caught lacking.
That's fair. And in the same time as like the A-Rod thing, one of the best left-handed power hitters to ever play the game of baseball. And even if the fact that he never failed a test, right? He was just mentioned on the Mitchell report.
Well, the Mitchell report was tests. They were all supposed to be anonymous, though, and the names were released.
Oh, okay.
That's what the Mitchell report is it's all failed tests, but we were never supposed to know who failed those tests.
I see. Which kind of lends credence to my argument that MLB doesn't actually give a fuck about who's using steroids.
Well, but that was also
honest, but
that was also before the new drug policies went into effect.
I see.
I'm gonna tell you, he's in the hall. Look at that photo. He's in the hall.
Oh, you found his ankle?
That should make me throw up, Omar. That's disgusting.
Yeah, there it is.
I hold the opinion that regardless of whether or not David Ortiz was juicing, and he absolutely was, I'm cool with it. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. Juice all you want, buddy. All right? Go for it. If that's going to make you hit the ball hard and far, do it. All right? We want to see balls go far. Okay? And you know what's going to help balls go farther? Putting some needles in your ass. All right? Easy. Boom.
No, shoot me up, Pop.
We're going to have to argue about that, but I'm glad that we all understand that David Ortiz should just be in the Hall of Fame. I find it, I don't know, maybe Mark has a better finger on the pulse of this, but I find it kind of doubtful that he gets in this year. I don't.
Oh, yes. Oh, no. He's first
You don't
ballot
see him
easy.
as like a first ballot guy? Because, again, baseball writers give much more of a shit about someone being a first ballot.
Oh, no. He's.
Josh,
there's
snacks there?
No.
Ryan Thibodeau, who runs the Hall of Fame tracker at Not Mr. Tibbs on Twitter. He keeps track of all the public ballots and percentages and all that stuff. Ortiz is at about 85% right now.
Oh.
And there's usually about a 5% dip in between what the tracker says and what the actual percentage is. So he still gets in as of right now. So I expect I expect his name to be the only one said tomorrow. because he's the only one tracking for the taking in the margin of error to get in.
Interesting. I mean, like I said, I don't have a problem with him being a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think more people should be a first ballot Hall of Famer because I think this voting system is stupid. All right?
Mm-hmm.
We've gone over 100
Yeah, I
times.
mean, if Jeter's a first ballot Hall of Famer, then I don't see why Justin Morneau doesn't get in here on the first ballot.
It was Mariano Rivera was the first
Unanimous
Hall of Famer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
This proves my point. The fact the whole thing is stupid. You can't tell me that there's only one person in the history of the fucking sport that was worthy of everyone voting for him. Really?
Well, Nunez, Hank Aaron was black, you see.
What happened with Dave Root?
Yeah, but
can you
that was.
imagine being the one racist piece of shit who's like, who's Hank Aaron? I'm voting for that guy.
This Henry,
but
I never heard of him. All right.
It was more than one. It was many more than one. I think Hank Aaron got like 88% of the vote.
It's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Yeah, they're like, I call him
Probably thought he
Henry.
was cheating.
And it was the same thing as we talked about a couple years ago of like dudes who will be like, oh, this guy's gonna get in anyway, so I'm not gonna vote for him.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the dumbest shit on the planet. There was the Jeter thing of like dudes who were like openly like, I'm not going to vote for Jeter because people will vote for him, so I might as well throw my 0.5% at someone who has no shot of getting in. It's the dumbest thing on the planet. Stupid and dumb. Anyways, I have no problem with David Ortiz being a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think more people, like I said, more people should be first ballot Hall of Famers.
It also goes to the fact that he is almost universally beloved.
Yeah. Well, because
no one hates David Ortiz.
We've talked about it. I mean, the Baseball Hall of Fame, more than anything, is just a game of politics. If you're not well liked, you're not getting in.
I guarantee you, if he didn't get shot, he would not be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
I agree.
I guarantee you, because that's just how the writers are.
Oh my God. Josh just sent us the picture of Kurt Schilling's leg.
Yeah.
That's a Hall of Fame picture right there.
Like when Yankees fans and stuff are like, it was catch up. It wasn't really bleeding. It was all, they were dabbing it in the dugout. No, fuck you. He couldn't walk.
Yeah. All right. Well, so I have 3 more names on my ballot. Does anybody else have any names that they think might not be mentioned? I think Josh and Austin might have some wild cards here.
Yeah, I might get weird with it.
So you want to bring those guys up first?
Yeah, I'll go first here. Sorry, I'll give you a guy, and I like to think that I made this list pretty much just how the baseball writers picked them, and I don't need to give a justification. Okay, so I'm just gonna tell you a guy. I'm gonna tell you I like him, and we're gonna move on. Okay, I'm gonna tell you that Scott Rowland should be in the Hall of Fame. I think you guys will agree with me on that one, though. I think we talked about it earlier in the chat.
Yeah,
so I may not have to. Wow, Scott Rowland. I mean, Mark, give me the Gold Glove stat. Give me why he should be in. Do my defending for me. Okay,
Mark. This is a perfect time for Mark to go on a Scott Rowland rant, which I find. You know what's funny? I also have him on my ballot for what it's worth, but it's funny to me that his on Baseball Reference, and I know this isn't gospel or anything, his Hall of Fame standards meter is only at 40, which is 10 points below the average Hall of Famer. But that's because, as Marcus told me, there's only like a dozen third basemen in the Hall of Fame.
It's ridiculous.
They're like, this guy wasn't Eddie Matthews. How can we put him in the Hall of Fame?
The fucking argument against third baseman getting in the Hall of Fame is my least favorite argument about the Hall of Fame. Because they always, everyone who doesn't vote for Scott Rowland makes that argument. They're like, look at the third baseman in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, and...
You gotta root for A-Rod.
Because he'll only make it worse. He'll only make it worse.
700 home runs.
Yeah. It's just, oh my... Listen, I understand that Scott Rowland is... I just gave him my last name. I understand he's not George Brett or Mike Schmidt or Eddie Matthews or any of these fucking home run Baker. He was a third baseman.
Shout out to Home Run Baker, who hit like 90 home runs in his 18-year career. You're telling me Scott Rowland's not better than Home Run Baker? Eat my dick. All right?
But yeah, I think there's 13 third basemen that have been voted in by the writers. And they're all like the third baseman. Like when you think about baseball. And it's like Scott Rowland is a 7-time All-Star. He is a 8-time Gold Glove winner, including one at the nice young age of 35, playing the position they call the hot corner. So even at 35 years old, he was still the best defensive third baseman in the National League. And that was in 2010. And I don't remember most of Scott Rowland's career. So if he's winning Gold Gloves in 2010, that tells me something. He hit 316 home runs, which is a very good number. It's not like he has 130 home runs. It's not like he was Ichiro when it comes to power. Like, the guy was a legitimate power threat. He had 330 home run seasons. He drove in 105 times, 1,200 career RBIs, 280 hitter, career 122 OPS plus. But when you look at like the WAR and JAWS rankings among third basemen, like on Baseball Reference, he's 10th. He's the 10th best third baseman of all time according to those standards. And it seems like the people who like things like batting average, home runs, and Gold Glove awards, which are legitimately an outdated defensive award, they usually don't necessarily reflect the way that the actual defensive metrics turn out. They're the ones that are like, oh, he doesn't have enough of those, even though he has 8 Gold Glove awards and everyone recognizes him as a phenomenal defensive third baseman, along with over 300 home runs and 1,200 RBIs. They're like, yeah, that's not enough. And when you try to explain to him that when you compare him to the other Hall of Fame third baseman, of course he's not going to fucking stack up. Mike Schmidt's the greatest third baseman of all time. I didn't sit here and compare Bobby Abreu to Babe Ruth just because they both played right field.
Right. Like, it's the silly thing to me, really, is like that we've gotten into the problem where they basically back themselves into the corner of their stupid way of thought. Is that like now that they've got their boys club of the Baker's dozen of third bases, then they see fit. Mm-hmm. When is the next third baseman going to get into the Hall of Fame? Because all it's going to be is, oh, he's not Mike Schmidt. It'll not be Chipper Jones.
It'll be in 4 years when Adrian Beltre gets on the ballot.
That's fair.
Yes.
It'll be Adrian Beltre, and then who knows? It'll be Adrian Beltre. If Scott Rowland doesn't get in that period of time, which I expect him to, Scott Rowland will make it into the Hall of Fame because more and more people are coming around on him every single year. He's gained more votes this year again. But it'll be Adrian Beltre, and then like Manny Machado, if he plays long enough and hits 500 home runs. Like, it's unbelievable that this is the one position where there is a very long list of very good third basemen throughout the history of baseball. And they're just like, no, gotta have 450 home runs, hit 300, win 13 Gold Glove awards, and be one of the, 20 best players to ever play the sport.
Yeah.
It blows my mind that Scott Rowland, like a guy like this that everyone recognized over the course of his career, was one of the 2 or 3 best third basemen in baseball, going up against guys like Alex Rodriguez. Like, why is this a conversation that needs to be had year after year where not enough people are voting for this guy? He was incredible. The 10th best third baseman of all time.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of being one of the best at your position of all time and not being in the Hall of Fame, how's about Billy Wagner? Am I right, everybody? Yeah. I believe all of us had Billy Wagner on our ballot last year, so I assume that he's still on it this year. Right?
Was he caught lacking?
No, but he did not
get shot.
He did have 422 saves and a career 2.31 ERA with a sub-1 WHIP.
You see what I'm doing here? You see this number 2?
Yeah.
That's where Billy Wagner is in terms of all-time relief pitchers for me. It's Mariano Rivera and Billy Wagner.
What about Trevor Hoffman?
No, Billy Wagner was much more dominant than Trevor Hoffman was over the course of his career. Trevor Hoffman had the saves number, which is great. He had 600 saves. Billy Wagner's ERA is a whole half of a point lower than Trevor Hoffman's. He's got the second lowest ERA in the history of relief pitchers, second to Mariano Rivera. The strikeout per 9 number is better. The whip is better. Like, this guy is unbelievable. Why do the voters hate relief pitchers? It's a fucking position.
Yeah, well, this is where it comes into it. This is reliever is actually very similar to the state of third base in the Hall of Fame, in that there's 8 relievers in the Hall of Fame currently, and I don't know where the hell we're supposed to go from here. So we want to claim that 300 saves is the metric, right? Like, we want to claim that that's the number that we want to look at. This dude had 422 saves, and we're fucking scratching and clawing to get him 50% on his 8th year in the ballot.
Well, we want to talk about 300 saves as a number. The all-time saves leader when he retired was Lee Smith. He got in on the Veterans Committee ballot 2 years ago. He had over 400. He had over 400 saves. He was the all-time saves leader until Mariano Rivera passed him. This guy just got into the Hall of Fame thanks to the Veterans Committee 2 years ago. What are we talking about here? Like, if you want to use saves as a number, that's fine. The number can't be 600 when the club is 2.
It's the 600 club, all right? If you didn't get 600 saves, you're garbage. That's the official position of the Baseball Writers Association of America.
You want longevity, too? Billy Wagner in his final season, 2010 with the Braves, when he was closing in front of some guy named Craig Kimbrell, I don't know if you've heard of him, who was a 20-year-old at the time, throwing 135 miles an hour. Craig
Kimbrell, only the best reliever of the past decade.
Yeah, he was the setup man on that team to Billy Wagner, who was 38 years old, had 37 saves, a 1.43 ERA, and had he had 104 strikeouts in 69 and a third innings.
Nice.
The longevity's there, the run prevention is there, the dominance is there. He is the prototypical Hall of Fame relief pitcher, and he is yet to receive 50% on the ballot because the writers are all morons and I hate them.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, that is just banging your head against the wall, right? Like, the hell else do you want me to say? Like, I can't sit here and yell and scream about the fact that, like, it's very simple. This guy is one of the 5 best players to ever do the thing that he does. And somehow here we are 8 years into the ballot, and he can't even scratch 50%. Like, what else?
If he deserves it.
What else am I supposed to do? Like, this is a similar thing to what I was talking about earlier. Like, I feel bad for him because his position is automatically, what the hell? If I'm Billy Wagner, I'm thinking, what the hell do I have to do?
Yep.
To get into the Hall of Fame.
But by the way, his career ERA is 2.31. He had 1 year where he threw, it was only 27 innings, but he had a 6 ERA. I just looked, let's say that was the year 2000. If you take that year to the end of his career, his ERA is an even 2.3. If you take out that year and just do 2001 to 2010, his ERA is a 2.13. So that just shows how much on a relief pitcher's resume, how much one blow-up year like that can cost him. We're talking about a guy that is very close to having a better ERA than Mariano Rivera. That's just what it is. He's almost as good at Mariano Rivera as preventing runs, the thing that Mariano Rivera made his career doing as the greatest relief pitcher of all time.
Yeah, man. I don't know what to tell you.
I have been on a conquest for a phone charger for 10 minutes now.
I'll tell you, I'll one up you and tell you that I put Joe Nathan on my ballot.
Who the fuck is Joe Nathan?
He's going to be on my ballot next year when a couple of these guys fall off.
Yeah, I'll be candid with you, Josh. I had the same reaction. I have never heard of the fellow named Joe Nathan.
Can I get
No way.
You don't remember Joe Nathan?
Is he a catcher? Right?
No, he's a closer.
He's a closer. Yeah, no.
Oh,
I mean, you got to remember, Mark, that I didn't actually start watching baseball until like 2017.
That's fair.
So I only know, I know who Jonathan Papelbon is.
Love me some Pap.
Jonathan Papelbon, who on the surface has better numbers than Joe Nathan. So answer to that.
Nathan played. Was he a twin?
Yeah, he was a twin.
That's not Cap. I mean,
no, Jonathan Papelbon's numbers are ridiculous.
Let's say we've got an ERA plus that's 26 points higher than Joe Nathan. We've got an ERA proper that's 0.4 of a point lower, a WHIP that is 0.08 of a point lower, 9 less nine less saves, I guess. If you wanted to go that route.
In 4 less years.
Yeah.
Yeah, screw this. I'm not going to vote for Joe Nathan next year. I'm going to vote for Jonathan Papelbon.
Nine less saves in 200 fewer innings. Yeah. Anywho. Present the case to me, Austin. Why is Joe Nathan a Hall of Famer?
Well, hear me out. Hear me out.
Because I'm not saying he's not. He probably should be. Looking at it.
There was just a 10-season stretch where if Mariano didn't exist, people would be talking about Joe Nathan. I mean, there was a 10-year stretch where 9 of the 10 he had a sub-3 ERA, and I think 5 of those years he had a sub-2 ERA. And 6 of those years he had a sub-2 ERA. And he also had 9 of those 10 years, he also had 35 or more saves. I have never really seen a large quantity of relief pitchers do it for an extended period of time. I mean, a lot of the guys you see that are really good do it for a couple years and then fall off. I mean, there's obviously the exclusive ones who don't, but those ones make the Hall of Fame. So,
those ones should make the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
In the case of certain players, the ones that we've been talking about, they don't make the Hall of Fame, but they should. I accept that. I don't, like I said, I don't disagree.
Yeah, I could definitely see myself voting
when
for
you
Joe
have
Nathan
5 seasons, you have 5 seasons of 40 saves combined with a sub-2 ERA. I mean, you were the peak level reliever in your sport for a whole decade.
Yep. And I know that I've got a couple of spots missing because I know Mark had all 10. So the last person on my ballot is Todd Helen.
Yes.
I assume he's on everybody else's ballot. But before we get into the Todd Helton thing, because it's another, Josh just waved. I don't know if that's a yes or a no. I think that's a no. He said no.
No.
Of course he didn't, because Josh would go, the Coors Field.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
Breathing out of his mouth, saying that Coors Field disqualifies him from the Hall of Fame. Does anybody else have other people that they have on their ballots that we have not mentioned before we do the Todd Helton thing to wrap up?
I've got 2.
And Josh has 1. Josh, who's your
2?
Yeah. My one, he's probably got the best batting stance the show has ever allowed someone to use. He also hit, I want to say, at least 500 home runs.
Yeah, he had over 500. No, okay. He had like 514.
Dude was a stud. Although
509.
his son is a bitch that Mark has owned on Twitter, I will put him in the Hall of Fame, and I would put Gary Sheffield on my ballot.
Gary Sheffield is also on my ballot.
I honestly don't really have much of a problem with that. I probably, in hindsight, should have put him on mine. Now I'm looking at it.
He's one of those guys.
Recite play on my bed to not have Gary Sheffield on my ballot.
I can't, in good faith, put Bonds and Clemens on my ballot and not put Sheffield, who has like basically the same ideology behind him. I can do it with Sammy Sosa because I don't have Sammy Sosa on my ballot because I think that guy was just a fraud. He was corking his bat. He was doing every single thing he could possibly do to cheat.
Sammy Sosa
I was
is
gonna
special.
My theory on the roids, at least, was just like, did I think this guy was good outside of roiding? And I didn't really think that Sammy Sosa would have been what he was without.
That's certainly a part of the conversation. Like, we all acknowledge that Barry Bonds is probably still the best hitter of all time without the steroids. I would say the same thing for A-Rod. I would say the same thing for any handful of guys you want to mention. You know, do I think Mark Maguire had all that power? Look at that guy. He's country strong. All right, Mark Maguire is still hitting 500 home runs even if he's not juicing. That guy was huge, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, he wasn't, because when he came up as a rookie, he was like very skinny, like
that's true.
Skinny.
I watched the documentary about it.
Yeah, he was very skinny, and so but he also hit 49 home runs as a rookie, so he was country strong, and he would have gotten big anyway. But yeah, so I can't say Bonds and Clemens get in without saying Sheffield, 290 hitter. 509 home runs, 393 on base, 140 OPS plus. One of those guys that just played everywhere, like would absolutely go in with a blank cap just because, like, some people think of him as a Yankee, some people think of him as a Marlin, some people.
I personally think of him as a Yankee.
Yeah, like Austin might think of him as a Tiger because he spent 2 years there, and like
his picture on Baseball Reference is with him with the Dodgers, for what it's worth.
Yeah, like. He spent 4 years with the Dodgers. He spent 4 years with the Brewers. He spent 2 in Atlanta. Like, he was everywhere. And so it's just like, if he goes in with a Yankee cap, it's a sham.
That's just an excuse to add another one to the Yankees Hall of Fame list.
Yeah,
exactly. What it is. Yeah.
But
the Mountain Monument.
Yeah, so I had to have Sheffield on my ballot. That guy, and I do think he was just a really good player. Like, just the amount of power he generated with his swing is enough for me to be like, yeah, even if he didn't juice, he's probably getting close to 500 home runs, because that violent move through the ball was just like, no, he wants to hit the ball as far as possible every single time.
Yeah. Can I guess who the last person we haven't mentioned yet is on your list? Oh, I actually know who it is. I forgot about that. I looked at your ballot earlier today. So never mind. I do remember who it was. I was originally going to guess Andrew Jones, and then I remembered that it's not Andrew Jones. It is Jeff Kent.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Most home runs.
So make the case for Jeff Kent.
Here it is. The most home runs ever by a second baseman. Boom. That's the case. He's the best power hitting second baseman of all time. He had 0 steroid allegations against him. Everyone acknowledged he was just clean. The only reason he isn't in, once again, is because he's a prick.
What did he do?
Sounds like a pretty good case to me.
Nothing.
Why is he a prick? Oh, he's just a bad guy.
No,
he's just an ass.
Yeah, he just didn't like doing post-game interviews and shit, so he was mean to the media. And of course, the writer's like, boo-hoo, he was mean to me. I'm not going to vote for him. He had 351 home runs as a second baseman out of his 377 career home runs. It's like, yes, I know those numbers off the top of my head because I've been screaming about Jeff Kent ever since he got on the ballot because I can't believe he isn't in. The guy is.
I just don't think second basemen should get in.
That's fair.
That's where you put all the bad players.
Well,
I mean, Robbie Cano, the twice suspended PED user.
He was good even afterwards, man.
No, he wasn't.
No, he wasn't. He's been terrible since.
What?
Yeah.
He's also 40, for what it's worth.
That's
you know.
Like,
I can't hold that really against him.
But no, this guy that wasn't accused of steroids, but at the same time won an MVP off of Barry Bonds while he was his teammate in 2000, like, put up insane numbers, and just because he was mean to the media on a couple occasions, people don't vote for him. It blows my mind that when your top, like, statistical comparison as a second baseman is like Rogers Hornsby, that they're like, nope, can't do it. Like, I'll,
We talk about
I'll
how Barry
never
Bonds was
understand.
robbed that year, anyways.
Oh yeah, Bonds should have won MVP, but Kent won it. So
They couldn't give it to that guy again. He couldn't give
he won
it to him.
4 after that.
So they couldn't have made it so he won 9 MVPs. You know, why didn't we just give him 10? Like we should have just gotten him to 10. We could have mined a couple more MVP seasons out
Is
of
that
there.
the most ever? 9? What's the
7.
most?
It's
No,
7.
he has 7.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got 7 MVPs and Clemens has 7 Cy Youngs.
Jesus fucking
Yeah.
Christ. I mean, no,
so I'd like
know,
to
I
say
guess-
that I've since added Jeff Kent and Gary Sheffield to my ballot.
So you're now at 10.
I'm now at 9.
Oh, you're now at 9. Okay.
I need
Yeah.
one more, Austin.
2,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, that's 10. That's 10.
Sick.
The difference between you and I is that I have A-Rod and you have Bobby Abreu, which I think is a fun comparison between the two.
True.
You know. But finally, a man who is on my ballot, he's on Mark's ballot. I don't know about the other two here, Josh and Austin, is Todd Helton. Oh, we already said it. He's on Austin's ballot and not Josh's.
Yeah.
Josh, you care to tell me why Todd Helton's not on your ballot?
I just had other guys I like, man.
Did you get
You
the 10?
didn't vote for 10.
Oh, yeah. Put them on there. Sorry, I only got 9.
So
Put them on.
let's
Yes,
be
I don't know.
very honest with this.
I mean, I got no how.
The reason that Todd Helton isn't in the Hall of Fame is because he played for the Colorado Rockies.
Mm-hmm.
Full stop. It's the reason Larry Walker had to wait. It's the reason that if Nolan Arenado stayed with the Rockies for the rest of his career, it's the reason he would have had to wait.
Never would have made it. I guarantee you.
Yeah. Well, and it's extra stacked up against him now, given how his play has not held up outside of Colorado.
It held up fine. He hit 35 home runs.
Yeah, but mostly with the average. His average shot down to like 260.
Yeah, but that's like that was my entire thing when we were talking about that. It's like he could have, all of the rest of his career be that like 250 to 260 with 120 OPS plus and 30 home runs. He could have 5 more of those years outside of Colorado, and they wouldn't vote for him because they'd be like, "Oh, look at the batting average," even though he still hit 30 home runs and drove in 100 RBIs,
and is still the best defensive third baseman in baseball. But
yeah,
something they really like to talk about until it benefits them to not talk about.
Arguably playing third base at a place where it's harder to play third base because that already gets the most hard hit balls, and in Colorado there's more hard hit balls than anywhere else.
Look, and we don't need to convince Austin to give Nolan Arenado a Hall of Fame vote, all right? But anyways, that's beside the point. This is not a conversation about Nolan Arenado. This is a conversation about Todd Helton. So Todd Helton had a career stat line, or career slash line, 316, 414, 539. Every other player, with the exception of one, with a 300, 400, 500 slash line is in the Hall of Fame. The one exception is Manny Ramirez. There are only 3 active players with that slash line for their career. Mm-hmm. Joey Votto, Mike Trout, 2, I would say, pretty solid Hall of Fame cases there. Oh, and the third one is Juan Soto, who we've said on this show 1,000 times is a 22-year-old Ted Williams.
Yep.
In the year 2022. So you really want to use that kind of argument. That's fine, right? How's about this? 97, Larry Walker's MVP season. Incredible year, right?
Mm-hmm.
How's about when Todd Helton followed it up in 2000, slashing 372, 463, 698?
And that's the year Jeff Kent won MVP.
Yes. That year, Todd Helton finished 5th in MVP voting that year.
Was Paul Konerko on those teams too? Or is that too young, too early for him?
Paul Konerko never played for the Rockies. He played for the White Sox.
Oh, I'm a fucking idiot. God damn it. Yeah, they both played first. What am I talking about?
Yeah.
Right?
Todd Helton led the league in WAR that season.
He did. He led the league in WAR that season. Finished 5th in the MVP voting that year.
He also led the league in hits, RBIs, batting average, on base percentage, slugging, OPS.
Yeah. Led all batters in WAR that year. Let's look at the career numbers. 369 home runs, 1,400 RBI, 2,500 hits over the course of his career. Again, a career 316 hitter, 953 career OPS. Had 5 seasons with an OPS over 1,000, and then another one where his OPS, or another 2 where his OPS was 980 or above.
Mm-hmm.
Career OPS plus of 133.
That's the one. That's the number, because he played his entire career in Colorado. OPS plus is park adjusted. It doesn't take your ballpark into consideration, and he was still 33% better than the league average hitter. He was still miles better than the league average hitter, and they're just like, nope, don't care.
OPS plus accounts for park average. There's other stats here. Let's see. Let's look at these Hall of Fame indicators on Baseball Reference, the ones that also account for park. Let's see here. Hall of Fame monitor for Todd Helen. Likely Hall of Famer is 100. Again, this accounts for his park. 175. How's about that?
Blows it out of the water.
Hall of Fame standards, average is 50. This is his career compared to the rest of the Hall of Famers at his position. The average being 50. 59 is Todd Helton's Hall of Fame standards. So almost what's that number? Almost 20% better than any other
than
first
the average.
Baseman.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost 20% better than the average first baseman that's in the Baseball Hall of Fame right now. It's just because of Coors.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to take, how about this? Let's look at his home road splits here. Mark, you had something to say while I pull this kind of thing up?
Yeah, and I was just going to say, like, first base is the opposite of third base for the Hall of Fame. There's a million first basemen that probably shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Like, Tony Perez, very borderline. Harold Baines was a DH first baseman, shouldn't be in. Like, there's the borderline for first baseman is much lower, and he clears many of those guys. Like, not just a few, a lot of them. So he's in the upper echelon of Hall of Fame third baseman or first baseman. Not, he's not trying to think. He's not Lou Gehrig. He's not in that like top category, but he's plenty close enough to be like, yeah, I don't understand why this guy wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. And then it's just, oh yeah, that's right. He played in park where ball go far.
Yeah. I'm looking on Fangraphs right now to try and pull up his numbers, and it's not helping me.
What do you want? His home road splits? I got him right here.
Yeah. Let's see. On the road in his career. Why is it only
stinks?
It's only giving me his numbers from 2002 to 2013.
I got it.
Yeah, please.
So his career slash line on the road was 287, 386, 469. Good for an 855 OPS plus. He had 142 home runs on the road, 271 doubles. So yeah, the numbers take a dip. When I did my Hall of Fame episode with Rick, I talked about this. People love to say the Coors Field effect, how it boosts your home numbers. Everyone hits better at home anyway. So, let's say instead of, he was a career 347 hitter at home, or 345. Let's say you take that down, make it his career average, 315 or so. Like, just for general boost of a home ballpark that you always see. Now take into consideration the fact that every time he played in a different ballpark, he had to breathe differently than when he played at his home ballpark. There is a disadvantage to playing in Colorado where every time you leave, it messes up your breathing.
It's true.
And so this guy was a 287 hitter on the road when he couldn't breathe the way he normally breathes. That should say something, that this guy was great.
I'll give you this also. 363 WOBA on the road, weighted on base average, which also takes into account park factors. 121 WRC plus on the road, weighted runs created plus, again, 100 being average, 121 for his career. He's one of 33 hitters since World War II to have more walks than strikeouts, with over 9,000 plate appearances. Let's see here. 18 of those players are in the Hall of Fame, and he's the only one other than Chipper Jones to play into the 2010s of those 18, or those 19, including him. By the time he retired, the league-wide strikeout rate was 20%. His career strikeout rate was 12.4%. He's 26th all-time in intentional walks, if you're interested in that one. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you, man. You want to talk? The Baseball Hall of Famers love to suck the dick of players who stay with like one team as well. How's about that? Todd Helton played his entire career with one team. I'll give you this. There are only 47 players in baseball history to play at least 17 years with one team. You want to talk about the loyalty factor?
Is David Ortiz one of those two? Did he not play?
No, he played for the Twins.
Oh yeah, what am I?
And the Mariners.
What are we talking about?
David Ortiz.
No one.
Ortiz, yeah. Okay.
How about go to the Jaws leaders and like that leaderboard on Baseball Reference? Todd Helton is 15th among first basemen. We were talking about Scott Rowland being 10th for third baseman. Todd Helton's 15th among first basemen, ahead of Eddie Murray, who's a 3,000 hits, 500 home run guy. He's ahead of him. He's ahead of Hank Greenberg, who was a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's ahead of Harmon Killebrew, who hit 570 home runs. He's ahead of Tony Perez, like I mentioned, who's in the Hall. Orlando Cepeda. He's way ahead of Gil Hodges, who just got into the Hall of Fame. Like, he's ahead of guys that, specifically Eddie Murray, who is often talked about as one of the best first basemen of all time. One of, I think it's like 8 people with 3,000 hits and 500 home runs. And he's ahead of him in these advanced metrics that are all park adjusted and, take into account the fact that he played his entire career at Coors Field. So if they're saying he's better than that guy, then he should be in the Hall of Fame.
See, this is where the Writers Association's downright refusal to accept any sort of thing that can be construed as an analytic, something that's not batting average, really comes back to bite them in the ass. Because now that we have all this data that we can go back and look at, and again, adjust for park factor. You can't go, Coors effect, when these stats deliberately take out the park. It creates a level playing field for all players. That's how analytics is supposed to work. That's the point, is to have finer detail on stats that create a more comprehensive picture to make comparisons between players even easier. Takes out.
Problem,
what's that?
Isn't that like the people who actually give a fuck that he only played at Coors are the same people that ignore these advanced analytics?
That's the point. Yeah. Because in order to make that argument, you have to ignore the analytics.
Yeah.
Those two things go hand in hand. You can't acknowledge the analytics and then still say, Coors. They're diametrically opposed. So it's really just ignorance on their part is what it is. And I didn't really think it's funny. We had this conversation with Larry Walker, who was held off of the Hall of Fame ballot, or the Hall of Fame until his 10th year. Again, because he played at Coors. And I get it. Larry Walker, probably the better player between the two of them. I know they played together, right? So there's an apt comparison between the two. But again, it's like, especially in hindsight, because these advanced metrics weren't around for the majority of Todd Helton's career. WOBA wasn't around. WRC Plus wasn't around for the majority, if not the entirety of his career. But now that we have that hindsight, why don't we use it?
We also, I feel like we shouldn't have needed it when watching Todd Helton. Like, he was the type of player that when I watched Todd Helton, I was like, that guy is one of the best first basemen I've ever seen. Like,
it comes down to like so a lot of the stats that I pulled were from an article that Jordan Schusterman wrote he's one of the two guys in Cespedes Family Barbecue, one of the best Twitter accounts to follow. He wrote an article for Fox Sports making the case for Todd Helton to be in the Hall of Fame. It's where I pulled the majority of my stats from. At the very end of the article, he wrote, plainly, you know a Hall of Famer when you see one.
Mm-hmm.
And Larry Walker, outside of the Coors adjustments, outside of the advanced metrics.
Todd Helton, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, Todd Helton. Larry Walker, too. But Todd Helton, in this instance, dude was a Hall of Famer. Plain and simple. You know?
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
So, is Cespedes Family Barbecue not Ioannis Cespedes?
No.
On Twitter?
No.
Every time. I mean, we've brought him up in the chat, I don't know, a dozen times. I thought this was Ioannis Cespedes every time.
I did for a very long time until I followed them and realized it was like two Jewish guys who happened to write about baseball.
That's so much better.
It is two men by the name of Jordan Schusterman and Jake Mintz.
Just one last Todd Helton stat I just found. If you look at WAR 7, so you take the guy's 7 best years of his career and add up the WAR, basically. He is 10th all-time among first basemen, ahead of Hank Greenberg, who I mentioned before, Frank Thomas.
That guy was good.
Willie McCovey.
Oh, that guy has a thing named after him at the ballpark he played at.
Yeah, some guy is directly behind those two. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. His name is Miguel Cabrera.
Ooh,
awesome.
I never heard of that guy. He could probably be good one day.
Yeah, he might be halfway decent. Mark Maguire, Jim Thome, Eddie Murray again, like all of these guys. David Ortiz. Like the guy was nuts. The guy was nuts.
He's doing. Josh, can you give me a Seinfeld real quick? The guy was nuts.
He was nuts. What do you want from me? He's got balls. Big balls.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you, man. Todd Helton should be in the Hall of Fame.
I hate the Baseball Writers Association of America.
And that's where we'll end it. So this has been the episode that we talk about Hall of Fame. I don't know. This is a bad transition. Thanks for watching. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Hot Soap Pod, at Hot Soap Pod on Twitter. YouTube things. Like, subscribe, comment. Who do you think should be in the Hall of Fame? Probably similar guys to who we talked about. If I had to take a guess. I don't know. Who else is on the Hall of Fame ballot? Do you think Tim Lincecum should be in the Hall of Fame? Let us know if you think that.
Brian Howard's got a shot.
You're probably wrong, but let us know if you think it. Also, the radio show is back next week. We'll be sure to remind you about that on the podcast that will come out after the radio show next week. Other than that, next week we're going to be doing the same thing, but with football. So come back next week.
I will get much less passionate because it's a sport I know much less about.
I will get much more passionate, especially when it comes to the topic of offensive linemen, like we did last year.
Nunez, he respects the big fellas.
Offensive linemen don't get the love they deserve, generally speaking.
Facts.
Like the fact that we're gonna have to fight to get Trent Williams into the Hall of Fame when he retires is just silly to me.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, that's a topic.
Shouldn't get so many holding calls.
Yeah, that's a topic for another day. Some would say that's a topic for next week, actually. So we'll be doing that next week. We'll see you next week. Thank you for watching. Hot Stove is back, baby. Goodbye.
Peace.